Mark A. Altman, Daren Dochterman, Ashley Edward Miller. 3 fans who became professionals and then became Treksperts. Inglorious Treksperts. Listen wherever you find podcasts or go to trekspertsplus.com.
Virginia, there may not be a Santa Claus, but there is a GalaxyCon, and guess who's coming?
It's going to be us, the Inglorious Treksperts in Richmond, Virginia.
Inglorious Live Tour 2023 continues.
Wow.
Daren and me, Mark A. Altman, will be in Richmond at GalaxyCon on, when is it, Daren?
It's March 24th through 26th.
March 24th to March 26th in lovely Richmond, Virginia. And there are going to be a ton of great guests, but none of that matters because we're there.
We're there. We are a ton of great guests.
We are indeed, and we're excited because GalaxyCon is where it's at. These guys put on great shows with great guests, a great dealer's room, and plenty of entertainment. And more. And more. Yes, exactly. The illusion of beauty and more. So I'm really excited, Daren. It's going to be a great chance to, I was going to say, a great chance for you to meet the fans.
That's right. And, for me to meet the fans, not you.
That's right. That's right. I'll be eluding deadly scooter accidents.
Oh my
but I'm excited because, like I said, the Inglorious Live Tour, or as I call it, my farewell tour. This is like the Who. You know, I'm on my farewell tour, but we know how that turned out. They've been on the same farewell tour now for 50 years.
That's right.
40 years.
That was a Godfather reference. Godfather 2, actually.
Yeah, he died of the same heart attack since. But it's gonna be great. Jodie Whittaker is gonna be there. Rosario Dawson, Kevin Smith, Bill Shatner, Brent Spiner. No, this is Columbus.
That's Columbus.
That's Columbus.
You got to click on the Richmond one.
I'm talking about Richmond, Virginia.
I don't think they have all of their guests up yet.
They don't. But Vincent
we're going to be there.
Going to be there. David Tennant's going to be there. Oh, one of our favorite people. You know who's going to be there? Not only is Bill Shatner going to be there, Walt Koenig's going to be there. We love Walt.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it'd be good to see him. Maybe we can.
Maybe we can show him another movie he hasn't seen in 30 years.
Jonathan Frakes will be there. Gates is going to be there. And
nice.
They're just starting to announce some of these guests, but the list goes on and on. And it's going to be, Mariel Hemingway from my favorite movie, Manhattan.
Nice.
And maybe if we can moderate a panel with her. I guess she's there for Superman 4, but we can talk about personal best in Manhattan. I think they'll go over the heads of the audience. They'll be like, what? What's going on here? Sarah Douglas is going to be there. We haven't seen her since Lola's. Yeah. Superman, that'll be great. Mark Pillow, Nuclear Man, is going to be there.
Nice.
And of course, the great Barry Bostwick will be there, star of such great legendary movies as Megaforce. So it's going to be a ton of fun. We're going to be there. We hope you'll be there too. Check out GalaxyCon.com for all the details, and we'll see you in Richmond, Virginia this March. Oh, this is Mark A. Altman.
This is Daren Dochterman.
Ho, ho, ho. This is Ashley Edward Miller.
And we are the Inglorious
Treksperts.
And
yo,
Yay.
yo, it's Robert Meyer Burnett, straight from the observatory.
Yerushalayim Shel Zahav.
Thanks.
Well,
Jerusalem.
A little Hanukkah action in the observatory going on. Looking up at the, North Star is Christmas. So, or no, the Star of Bethlehem, right? The Star of Bethlehem.
Once again, Christmas. We play a dangerous game.
Well, I'm glad to have everybody back. We've had 3 holiday specials so far. And much like the dreidel, we spin and we spin and we never know where it's going to stop. And this has been a delight. And we're going to continue. But before we get back to our countdown, starting with number 63, I have to ask you, other than John McClane, do you have a favorite Christmas character? Not Star Trek, like not the people that died in the fire in Generations, but like, is there a favorite? For me, it's the Burgermeister.
Burgermeister Meister Burger.
The Burgermeister Meister Burger. One, he has burger in the title, but also it's the great Paul Frees in Santa Claus is Coming to Town. That's one of my favorite of the Christmas specials, and I love that Burgermeister Meister Burger.
Well,
burger with Munster cheese.
It doesn't mean hamburger. It means city.
Yeah, I know what it means. Oh, you think I know that?
I will gladly pay you Tuesday for a Burgermeister today.
Oh my God! It's like those people on
your Burgermeister.
It's like those people on the Facebook. It wasn't Commander Stone who said I demand it. It's like no shit. Yes, we know. With the way it was written, it was. Of course, we know it was Commander. Kirk says that to Commander Stone, and I demand it right now.
Well, Commodore Stone, actually, but that's
what
fine.
I say, Commander, Commodore. Yeah, but Star Trek doesn't have Commodores anymore, which is ridiculous.
Thank you, Commander. We know who Commodore Stone is.
I love Commodores. I think it's a great.
They were a great band. We don't give them enough.
They were a great rank.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. So, okay, Rob, what about you? Who's your favorite Christmas character other than John McClane?
Well, I have to say that the character that Pia Zadora plays in Santa Claus Conquers the Martians.
Oh my God!
No, okay, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Wow,
I'm kidding.
I can't believe. Sorry.
That's true, by the way. She was actually, as a little girl, was in Santa Claus Conquers.
Well, that's why she got her Golden Globe. Best
she was painted out Santa Claus.
She was
green.
Well, I think my favorite. But you gotta take Jimmy Stewart, don't you?
You do. Although, is that a New Year's film or is it
a holiday film?
A Christmas film?
Yeah.
It's a Wonderful Life. It's kind of a New Year's film. Yeah. Yes, Jimmy Stewart's wonderful. What a wonderful film that is. And
even for a young Jewish boy like myself, I always thought It's a Wonderful Life was one of the great fantasy films ever made.
Because it's Donna Reed.
It's very Dickensian. It's not quite a Christmas Carol, but it kind of is too in a way.
I thought it was Donna Reed. I thought you had a crush on Donna Reed.
Donna Reed, dude.
Wow. Okay. What about you, Ashley? Favorite Christmas character?
Man, I loved Santa Claus Conquers the Martians, but since I can't take John McClane, I'm going to go with Hans Gruber. You know that there is a Hans Gruber advent calendar?
Yes.
And every day he falls another story of Nakatomi Plaza.
Yeah.
It's the most awesome thing. And think about it. Like, he's like reverse Santa Claus. Like, he takes all the presents, except he does give away a really great Rolex watch at the end of the movie.
I guess
and he does bring people together.
He takes the Rolex.
But at the end. Oh, no, he does.
It's on
he
her.
Is responsible.
He's grabbing her Rolex.
Have you seen Die Hard?
Yeah, actually, yes, I've seen
Die Hard.
Commodore Stone. It is. The thing is, he does bring an ode to joy. So
he does.
He is a Christmas character. Santa's a bit of a dick in Rudolph, isn't he, Darren?
Well, that's why he's not my favorite. That's not why
Who's your favorite?
My favorite is Santa Claus, but from Miracle on 34th Street.
Yeah, I knew
that
was coming.
Edmund Gwenn as Kris Kringle, Santa Claus. He is perfect.
Yeah, he really is.
He's awesome.
That was the other great thing on Channel 11, wasn't it? You had Star Trek and you had Miracle on 34th Street.
That's correct.
And I think it's sad that Miracle on 34th Street does not get the love now that it used to when we were growing up.
Well,
people all know It's a Wonderful Life.
Who do you think would win in a fight, by the way? Natalie Wood from Miracle on 34th Street or Pia Zadora in Santa Claus Conquers the Martians?
Totally Natalie Wood.
Oh, Natalie Wood kicked ass.
Yeah.
You don't mess with Natalie Wood.
Hell no.
She has the powers of brainstorm.
That's right. That's the power to move you.
That's right.
Wait, no, that's telekinesis, Kyle.
Yeah.
That's the power to kill a yak from 30 yards away.
Those are our favorite Christmas
What's your
characters.
favorite Christmas character, Mark?
I said the Burgermeister Meister Burger.
Oh,
because he was.
I thought you were joking.
No,
That's the Five
what?
Guys Whataburger.
You know what? No. I'll tell you my favorite character, my favorite Christmas character. Who do I like? I like that Rudolph. I like the Rudolph.
All right, you like the Rudolph.
I think he's he doesn't get to play in the reindeer games, but he doesn't let it get him down. Eventually, he becomes he becomes a trusted part of Santa's team.
He becomes
he's kind of like Spock. He's sort of excluded by the other Vulcans, right? Even though he's better and he's really good at what he does because he's a little different than they are. He's not half human, half Vulcan, but he got the nose. That's the weird nose thing.
The pointy-eared Vulcan.
And then he goes off and chases the sellout. He goes off to the Isle of the Misfit Toys.
Who's a sellout?
But at the end of the day, he's there for Santa when he needs him the most, right? He's like Spock, but Spock is there for Vulcan.
Oh, you know what? That makes me think. Even better than Hans Gruber, Martin Riggs.
Oh, and Lethal Weapon.
I was going to say that.
Yeah. Totally. I could see that.
Peltzer.
Yeah.
I could see that. And I'm not giving you any diplomatic immunity. Okay.
Just been revoked.
That's the second night in a row we've done Lethal Weapon jokes.
Is it?
Well, no.
Yes.
Well, just remember, we're recording these on a nightly basis, but they're not airing on a nightly basis. It could have been.
These could occur months apart.
That's right. In fact, that's going to be another countdown. The top 101 references to Lethal Weapon on this show.
Well, and it's the end of the year, so the last time we talked about our favorite TV shows of 2022. I want to ask you guys favorite DVD. Physical media. We're all big proponents of physical media here. Love to hear maybe one or two highlights of the year. Maybe tell our listeners something that they should grab, or if they didn't get it for Christmas, they can use their gift cards.
This was a great year for 4K remasters. Can I just say?
You can say.
We got Lawrence of Arabia.
Mm-hmm.
We got the Godfather trilogy.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Those are classic films that came out.
Don't take all of them. Leave some.
Rob, don't forget Casablanca and Double Indemnity.
I was, those two as well. And Casablanca came out last week. Mm-hmm. But in terms of non-movie titles, I would say one of the greatest discs. I won't bogart them, but if I could just mention two, both Top Gun Maverick and Dune.
Dune was mine. Dune was the one I was going to pick.
Which Dune? 84?
You should pick the other one. I'm picking the new one. I'm picking the new one.
You take the new. I shall take the old.
Yeah, explain what that is, Darren.
It's an amazing. What is it? 7 discs, something like that.
It's insane.
It's from Germany. It's this amazing plexiglass box encased 4K Blu-ray set that have every version of David Lynch's Dune ever created, with or without his permission.
Yeah, with or without you.
They're awesome, and they look great, and they sound great, and they have some supplementary material that isn't in German.
And I have to say, it's the second disc in history that has a fan edit of a movie on it.
That's true. And it's really good.
Yeah, it has the Spice Diver edit of Dune, which I think is maybe the definitive version of David Lynch's Dune.
Really? I haven't seen that because I have the American version, which doesn't have the documentary and doesn't have all the goodies on it.
Right.
But I'll have to.
I didn't even know that existed. Where do you? I mean, is that the only place?
Gone.
It's gone.
Yeah.
And then it's gone.
It's like tears
much like
in
Lucy
rain.
in the Sky with Diamonds.
Yeah.
But I'm sure one of these guys would be happy to show it to you at some point if you were so
But there
inclined.
has been, I mean, I have to say that as physical media has diminished, 2022 is a phenomenal year overall for physical media. I mean, everything from Cronenberg's Videodrome came out in a beautiful box set in 4K. Mm-hmm. I mean, I look over newer movies. The Japanese animated film Belle is a great
oh my
disc.
God, that movie is so good, dude.
It's so good. That came out in 4K. Basic Instinct came out from Studio Canal.
Yeah. And Lionsgate's going to put it out next year. And Touch of Evil came out from Kino Lorber and Usual Suspects, which are both great discs.
Show Us on the Doll where the evil touched you came out. What?
I mean there's an amazing, so much good stuff has come out in 4K.
Well,
I think we would be remiss. I think we need to talk to our esteemed colleague here
indeed,
to talk to him about. Let's find out What is really the greatest 4K disc that came out this year, Darren?
Well, I have a few before we get to Darren. Reservoir Dogs came out this week, and even though there's no new bonus material, in fact, it's very dated bonus material. The DDR is gorgeous of Reservoir Dogs.
He's going to kill
and the Criterion 4Ks, everything from Citizen Kane to Last Waltz to Double Indemnity, fantastic. They've just been hitting it out of the park with their 4K releases. I don't know if their Blu-rays have been as good lately.
Well, 4Ks have really taken their stand this year. They have established themselves, and they're not going away yet.
Yeah. The Batman 4K is great, but probably. Oh, and then there was a wonderful Blu-ray, a Woody Allen collection, had Everyone Says I Love You finally on Blu-ray. Bullets Over Broadway's in that set. But if there's one to rule them all, I think we can probably all agree something very special came out at retail this year. And Darren, tell us what it is.
Well, I don't know. No, it's the movie that proved that the odd-numbered movies aren't necessarily bad. And it is Star Trek: The Motion Picture, the director's edition, on 4K Blu-ray, and it's in many forms on the on Amazon and the internet and everywhere. It is obviously we were able to come back and remaster the director's edition that we had done way back in 2001, and it is back, and it has never looked as good. The movie looks amazing, especially when you watch it next to the theatrical version of the movie, but
it sounds amazing.
It sounds incredible. The new Atmos mix is it is a modern movie now, and it is amazing. Dare I say so myself?
If we don't add to that also Star Treks 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 also came out in 4K.
Indeed, they did.
They did. And it's great to have all the Star Trek films that matter in 4K now.
On HBO Max.
Well, and on physical media. And it was so weird because at the beginning of the year, they came out with that weird set of 1 through 4.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And then at the end of the year, they came out with obviously the very super duper special Star Trek: The Motion Picture Director's Edition, and then a set which had 1 through 6. In it, so it totally rendered that 1 through 4 set superfluous.
In more ways than one.
Yeah. But I love that special box set that has all 3 versions of the motion picture, the theatrical,
it's fun. And if you can find the British version, it has slightly better packaging.
Yeah, I can. It's right over there.
Well, aren't you the good boy?
Boy, everything's in the observatory. It's like the TARDIS in there.
You would not believe what I have in here. You should see my Emmanuel 4K box set.
Oh, wow.
I'm sure you've seen your Emmanuel 4K box set.
I have.
Looked at Emmanuel's box.
That's why there's no Kleenex left in here.
Oh my God, dude. Oh, we're all going to hell.
Well, ladies and gentlemen.
That was a great episode.
Children of all ages, welcome back to the Inglorious Treksperts Holiday Special, where we count down the greatest 101 Star Trek characters of all time. In parts 1 through 3, we counted down from 101 to 64, and we resume the countdown tonight with number 63. Robert Meyer Burnett, tell us, who's it going to be?
This, I have to say, this is a character created by Jerry Taylor. And this is a character that I honestly never thought. I remember... So when I was doing the documentaries for Blu-ray, Michael Dorn told the story of when he learned, because Michael Dorn is a classic, a fan of classic cinema. Yep. He loves classic cinema.
Abundantly clear when he was on the show.
And when he discovered that the great Gene Simmons, not the Kiss Gene Simmons.
She didn't want to rock and roll all night and party every day. She was too old for that.
He couldn't believe it. I mean,
are you saying that he had great expectations?
He had great expectations. And I'm, of course, talking about the character of Nora Satie.
Tell me, Captain, have you completely recovered from your experience with the Borg?
Yes, I have completely recovered.
It must have been awful for you. actually becoming one of them. Being forced to use your vast knowledge of Starfleet operations to aid the Borg. Just how many of our ships were lost? 39? And a loss of life, I believe, measured at nearly 11,000. One wonders how you can sleep at night, having caused so much destruction. I question your actions, Captain. I question your choices. I question your loyalty.
You know, there are some words I've known since I was a schoolboy. With the first link, the chain is forged. The first speech censored, the first thought forbidden, the first freedom denied, chains us all irrevocably. Those words were uttered by Judge Aaron Satie as wisdom and warning. The first time any man's freedom is trodden on, we're all damaged. I fear that day.
How dare you! You who consort with Romulans, invoke my father's name to support your traitorous arguments. It is an offense to everything I hold dear. And to hear those words used to subvert the United Federation of Planets. My father was a great man. His name stands for integrity and principle. You dirty his name when you speak it. He loved the Federation, but you, Captain, corrupt it. You undermine our very way of life. I will expose you for what you are. I've brought down bigger men than you, Picard.
In the fourth season, the latter half of the fourth season, the episode, The Drumhead, which is one of the most, it continues to be one of the most relevant episodes of Star Trek, I think, ever made. As the years tick by, especially in the America we live in today, we have to be ever vigilant to make sure that the rule of law and the rights of prisoners and the rights of our legal system are protected. And this episode is incredible. Obviously, Nora Satie is the daughter of a very famous Federation official that Picard admires and everyone admires. And she comes to investigate what may or may not be a conspiracy on board the Enterprise D. And her reach starts and begins during her investigation that Worf helps her with. So I can only imagine what it was like for Michael Dorn. I mean, I don't have to imagine, you told me, but what it was like for him to act with the great Gene Simmons in this episode. And, you know, people don't, the Next Generation and more so on Deep Space Nine, but they got some great actors to come on to TNG, especially in the latter half of the show, like the great David Warner, who Patrick Stewart said was the greatest Hamlet he'd ever seen on the British stage. And
yeah,
that was
and Fred Astaire was amazing.
That was Buck Rogers.
Oh, no, it was Battlestar Galactica.
It was Galactica.
Yeah, come on, dude.
Buck Rogers. My bad.
But Buster Crabbe was Buck Rogers.
That's correct.
Get it right. But no, I mean,
don't even know her, Crabbe.
This is she delivers an incredible turn, and when she loses it at the end during the grilling of Picard, and again, one of the greatest Patrick Stewart
I'm sorry,
Picard speeches.
That smells great. What are you grilling?
Sorry. Come on, Rob's making a point.
I know.
One of the most powerful.
Hey, it's all right. It's all right. I'm trying to be erudite here.
Yes.
Well, I'm trying to elevate the discourse.
It was, to take the blacklist and apply it to Star Trek and say how quickly something like this can get out of hand, how dangerous it is. It's real. And remember, the Star is a bottle show. They need to save money.
Oh, and by the way, Mark, this is an example of how you do a great bottle show.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and this is one great writing, and this is how you want to save money during a season. You spend your money on getting a great guest actor to come on and just deliver. I mean, let's face it, she does chew the scenery quite a bit, but she's care.
Great.
She's great, and it was a really chilling episode, and when Picard explains what a drumhead is to Worf, And then also when he delivers, when he's on the stand being grilled and she accuses him because of, and it follows up on Best of Both Worlds and Family and what happened during the Battle of Wolf 359. It's a great tie-in to all of that. She questions Picard's integrity and he gives it right back to her. And it is peak Star Trek.
Yeah, two acting titans.
One of my favorite episodes of The Next Generation, bar none.
Totally
Fantastic.
Agree. She's awesome. I mean, as a character on the page and on the stage. And as you said, I think it is an episode that is relevant, that will always be relevant, whether you're talking about, the Inquisition, the blacklist, cancel culture, like whatever it is that you're talking about, where it becomes convenient, to create a permanent enemy class. It's fascinating that it holds up in the way that it does, and I think we'll always feel fresh. We'll always be able to look at that and go, And again, like the performances in that episode are just outstanding.
There's another character. They introduced this character of Simon Tarsus, this young man who has hidden part of his background because he desperately wanted to be a part of Starfleet, and it's uncovered, and you realize that he deserves to be in Starfleet. Perhaps he's the best example of what Starfleet could be, and yet his entire career, because he made one mistake and didn't reveal a part of his past that would have precluded him or whatever from being a member of Starfleet. There's so many levels to this episode, and it really it works, and it shows that the best Star Trek does not have villains. The best Star Trek has antagonists that might start out with good intentions, but wind up in the depths of hell. People like Ambassador or Governor Kodos in Conscience of the King, and people who are trying to do what they can, and then they turn into the most vile of villains. Yeah,
Nora Sati is not, she is not doing it for the lulls. She legit believes that she's protecting the Federation.
And she's not doing it for fundraising.
Yeah, no, there's something about her that is, and Gene Simmons certainly accesses it, that is sincere, that is weirdly idealistic, but it is idealism that is kind of corrupted and turned inside out. And she doesn't even realize it until Picard gives her the beatdown after the grilling, the delicious.
Yeah. Well, she's trying to live up to her father,
Yeah.
And but it's
even that element's great.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, and you talk about the character who's hiding something, who she reveals, and it's interesting because it's no secret that Star Trek in the 90s didn't do a great job of dealing with sort of gay issues, and they weren't quite sure how to deal with it. They never really depicted characters. It was something they were reluctant to even first Gene and later Rick. But in a way, this is a metaphor for particularly the military of the era. The whole "don't ask, don't tell." And the fact that he was withholding this information, and that they ferreted it out, and then they got rid of somebody who was a real asset to the Starfleet. So it's such a well-written episode. It's so powerful. And again, it's something that was done as a cost saver. And what a difference. You compare something like Shades of Grey, not to bag on that again, which is the clip show in second season, to something like The Drumhead, which probably cost on par with what Shades of Grey did with the 3 days of filming, and it's just it's triumphant. It's one of the great Next Generation episodes.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that brings us number 62, and we're back with Darren Dochterman.
Number 62 is a fan favorite of people who like what we call the old friends of Kirk, and he was one of the closest friends to James Kirk, at least before the whole Spock thing. And that is Commander Gary Mitchell.
I'm trying to tell you I feel fine. When do I go back on duty?
I'm going to ask Dr. Dana to keep you under observation for a while.
With almost 100 women on board, you can do better than that, friend Captain.
Consider it a challenge.
That doesn't seem very friendly. Didn't I say you'd better be good to me?
reading even faster now than just a few moments ago. Is that Gary Mitchell? The one you used to know?
Put a 24-hour watch in the sick bay. Fullest possible range of examinations and tests.
And he is, of course, played by Frank Poole. No, wait, not Frank Poole. It is Frank Poole. By the great Gary Lockwood. I don't know if they had to call the character Gary to get him to respond to lines, but let's leave it at that. Gary Mitchell went through Starfleet Academy with James Kirk, and knew him from when he was a stack of books with legs. And they are very close. In fact, that Gary can tell Kirk things that no one else would ever get away with.
Hey man, your zipper's done.
I'm sure that would have happened had that occurred. In Where No Man Has Gone Before, the second filmed pilot of the Star Trek show, Gary is affected by a cloud, a space cloud at the edge of the galaxy that turns his eyes into tinfoil. He has tinfoil eyes and telekinetic powers that are just developing. And he goes, I'll tell you, he goes a little bit crazy, is what. And he
I'll go a little crazy sometimes.
But he's wielding his power like a madman, bringing cups across the room and such things like that. They have to do something about Gary. And in fact, that could have been the name of the episode. There's something about Gary. It's a great action-packed episode that helped sell the series, really. And Gary Lockwood doesn't really have any pleasant things to say about Shatner these days, because I think he was one of the first to feel the overwhelming ego and power of the number one on the call sheet.
The Wrath of Kirk.
The Wrath of Kirk.
How number one made him feel like number two?
Something like that, yes. But hey, at least he outranked Spock.
Well, you got to remember that, for Gary Lockwood, he was number one on the Lieutenant. He was was the star of that. And, he also has a reputation of being very arrogant and full of himself.
Indeed.
And if you talk to Sally Kellerman, she would say she actually found that quite attractive about him. But at the same time, he was an egomaniac.
She was repulsed, yet strangely attracted.
Yeah. And so, it must have been really hard. It's really hard when you've been the star of your own show, walking on and becoming a guest star on somebody else's show. Yeah. So I would take, some of those comments with a grain of salt. Well, but that worked for that character, obviously. The ego and the narcissism. And
it's one of the tragedies of Star Trek that Kirk's dear friend met a horrible fate, we think. We never really actually caught up with what happened to Gary Mitchell.
Until Star Trek V.
When he reveals himself.
The quest for Gary.
The quest for Gary. I love Where No Man Has Gone Before. It's creepy in an early kind of sense. It's like watching home movies, and it's not quite the Star Trek that we're used to, but it is the Star Trek that we deserve.
It's more closer to Forbidden Planet.
Indeed.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that brings us number 61, and Ashley Edward Miller.
There are a lot of things in this world that we consume that we don't quite give enough credit to. For example, a really delicious bowl of vanilla ice cream. Or
what character is that?
Properly applied to tuna salad. I myself am quite fond of tofu in the right circumstances. Now you may say to yourself, Ashley, all these things that you're describing, they're kind of bland. But I would say to you that there is a place for blandness, because when you add a little spice to it. It holds the spice. It makes the spice nice.
The spice is life.
Flow.
The spice is life, and the spice must flow. You can't function without it. And there's a character on The Next Generation who was really the tofu of The Next Generation, I think. And I really liked him. He was a man of unique vision.
Indeed.
Geordi LaForge.
Nice.
This alien space baby, which was about the size of a 4-story building, really thought the Enterprise was its mother.
Oh, you're pulling an old man's leg.
No, really. It was suckling power directly from the ship's fusion reactors. So Dr. Brahms and I changed the power frequency from 21 centimeters to 0.02 centimeters.
So you soured the milk.
That's right.
Oh, enjoy these times, Geordi. You're the chief engineer of a starship. And it's a time of your life that'll never come again. When it's gone, it's gone.
Geordi began as the helmsman of the ship, I guess, because
Well,
Gene
it began
thought
with the Rainbow Connection.
Well, yes, but I think Gene literally thought, okay, it'd be funny if the blind guy is piloting the ship.
Yeah,
hilarious. But eventually, they realized they needed somebody down in the engine room, and Geordi was just another guy sitting up on the bridge, and all he did was go boop 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 and push buttons. And they thought, well, could he push buttons in a more interesting looking place? And so they put him down in the engine room.
And no one liked Commander McGonagall.
No, nobody liked Commander McGonagall. So they replaced Commander McGonagall or Chief Argyle. Don't want to. You know what? You don't want a guy who is named after socks to be your chief engineer.
Oh, I thought he was the limo driver in Die Hard.
Yeah, well, when he's a
goodness.
limo driver, Die Hard, he's awesome. Like that scene where Chief Argyle calls up to bridge. I was thinking that we could call up some mama bears and have a little party.
Or is he married?
The great
He's
virtue of
married.
Geordi is that LeVar Burton is obviously he's a wonderful soul, and he certainly projects all of that with the character. There is a definite kindness and an empathy to him. He has a really wonderful relationship with Data, and you never see him in an episode where you don't like him. He even gets to be a little creepy sometimes, and you're totally good with it. What was her name? That when he fell in love with what's her name?
Leia Brahms.
In Galaxy's Child,
Yes,
Leia Brahms.
He falls in love with Leia Brahms.
She used to be Flint.
Yeah,
and then
but
before that, she was Leonardo da Vinci. Now she was Brahms.
That's right. But it was cool. When later she shows up for real, and he's like, "Oh, this is awkward as hell." I mean, there's just
He did not have game. He did not have game, Geordi.
And that was his appeal, right? That's what I mean. It's he needed the tofu. He doesn't have game, and not every Star Trek character should have game. And it was okay.
but Geordi, it was kind of it didn't really feel true to the character. That he was so. He was so uncomfortable around women and just so nervous.
I think Barclay could have gotten a date before Geordi did.
Yeah, no
That's
kidding.
The problem.
But in fairness to Geordi about the whole Leia Brahms not affair, I think it was actually played pretty well. It was that it's just the thing that was subtextually running through that episode with his whole interaction with her with that hologram was that he, in spite of himself, he was fooled by the hologram. And by the reality of the hologram. And
what was great about that was you had the episode, I think it was Galaxy Child, where the hologram, and then they brought the real Leia Brahms in another episode. And that was, I think that was what was really clever. But again, Geordi, I just don't buy him being so lame.
Well, he was lame. I mean, I think that they did him a disservice in one major way. Which is, great that he's blind, except that when you put that visor on his face, you can't see his eyes. When you can't see his eyes, it interferes the performance in.
But
but especially
you saw his eyes in the movies. It didn't change anything.
I don't know. I think it kind of did. It's look, LeVar Burton he's very expressive. And
he's a
not
wonderful
all TV
actor.
actors are like that.
LeVar is a wonderful actor. He was brilliant in Roots.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, everything I've seen him in, I think he's terrific. You know, and I'm not saying he wasn't good. He was good Next Generation.
Yeah, of course he was.
But
he was
I don't feel it's a character that was necessarily as well served as he could have been. Rob,
but you
what
would
do you
miss
think
him
of
if he
LaForge?
wasn't there. That's the thing, and that's I think why he is on the list, because he's fundamentally likable.
He's very likable.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that Geordie LaForge was never ever given his due in the entirety of Next Generation.
Yeah,
and because they really didn't know what to do with him, and the fact that he was driving the ship in season 1, then they sent him down to engineering, you know, and I think it's because he was so affable, you know, that they didn't. And I think they might have been maybe a little bit afraid to give him the kind of, because he was both blind and he was black.
What?
And I think that they were afraid to delve into the real meaty parts, because I think they were afraid to do it. And because of that, they didn't give him some hard-hitting storylines. And, you know, I never thought they leaned into the blindness the way that they could have.
They didn't. And there's that awful scene in, what was it, the beginning of Heart of Glory, where they're just trying to show off how it works. And it's like literally 10 minutes of like they're standing on the bridge like, wow, look. Yeah. And they're shooting it with like this ridiculous filter.
And
it's like,
nearly sinks that episode, which is otherwise great.
Yeah. I have to say, I mean, this is race was never an issue in modern Star Trek, but I really hated the fact that they used his visor and his blindness as a way for villains to create subterfuge, that they were able to monitor and generations, and I didn't like that at all. And I thought that there was, you know, the idea of the way he could see and the fact that he was given technology to help him see was actually very cool. And I don't know. I mean, I really like LeVar Burton, and he later went on to, I have to say this, I was actually on the set when I was working on the Star Trek Experience in Vegas. We shot part of the ride film on the set of the Deep Space Nine episode Soldiers of the Empire.
Oh, wow.
That he directed. And it was really cool because we had to shoot on the bridge of the Klingon bird of prey. And it was the scene when all the Klingons are singing together. And he was directing that episode. And I actually got to meet him and introduce myself and watch him direct. And of course, he was wearing a beret. That's all right. But it was
as opposed to a beret in front of his eyes.
Yes. If
you the raspberry beret. That's
right.
But you know, Rob, you make a really good point, what you just said about that they used his disability, you know, as something that was to his detriment. And really, Star Trek, the message of Star Trek is the disability should have been an asset. So your generations once again did something that they shouldn't have done. Yeah. With, you know, by using that, you know, by Sauron being able to use that against him and against the.
No,
I mean, the whole reason it's because of Geordi that the Enterprise is destroyed. When you think about it, which is, you know, awful, and to lay that on him and be basically because he was blind, they were able to capitalize.
You can think of, off the top of my head, I can think of 10 different ways that you could use Geordi's visor and the way he sees as a tactical advantage. Is somebody lying to me? Is somebody a shapeshifter? You know, is there somebody around the goddamn corner? You know, and just boom, boom, boom. All of these things. And
they never did that. And
they never did that.
The idea that technology augments human senses to the betterment of mankind would have been like transhumanism would have been much more interesting. Instead of making it seem like a tragedy.
I think it would have been interesting if they had actually played Geordi's character as feeling superior to everybody else because of his quote, handicap. That would have been a fascinating way to go, but never once.
Yeah. And that's what Rob's talking about with the transhumanism. That's really, it's really interesting. But it's the same way they didn't know what to do with the Marina's characteristics, with the empathy.
Yeah, I got nothing on that.
You know, and it's so true that they weren't able to do anything with, you know, LaForge's unique vision. But you know, look, when he worked in episodes like The Enemy, he's terrific. Even in some of the episodes which aren't as good, where he's featured, like the one where he becomes an amphibian or something. What was that one? Identity or something?
Oh yeah. Oh, I did. Yeah.
But he's affable. It's an interesting character, and of course, it's a tribute to the Star Trek fan. It was David Gerald's idea of a blind Star Trek fan that they named LaForge after. But it's it's a character that had a lot more potential.
I do think that in Relics, his interchanges with Scotty were really good because it kind of showed that Geordi's a little bit of a dick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
and
a good
I
point.
really liked that.
Yeah, he was like, "Okay, boomer."
Yeah, exactly.
Very much.
And
so.
lest we not forget that a relative of his was in Star Trek 4.
A relative of his?
Or Star Trek 6, Star Trek 4, Star Trek 6.
Of Geordi?
Yeah, because his mom was played by Madge Sinclair.
Oh,
yeah.
That's
right. That's right. Yeah.
Sorry, that's a deep cut.
That's good. That's good. Okay, well, that's Geordi LaForge. I think some people can be very disappointed that he wasn't higher on this list, but I think
or that we called him Tofu. But yes.
No, you called him tofu.
You called him tofu.
But that's a perfect explanation.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, and that brings us back to Robert Meyer Burnett at number 60.
Wow, did I love this character. Again, I guess you could call it a relative old flames. Star Trek did a good job of bringing back old flames, especially when it came to James T. Kirk. But who would have thought that they would have brought back not only an old flame, but the old flame in Worf's life?
Right.
And I'm, of course, talking about Susie Plaxton as K'Ehleyr.
You are late.
Sorry. Had to make myself beautiful.
I fail to understand why.
Worf, we're alone now. You don't have to act like a Klingon glacier. I don't bite. Well, that's wrong. I do bite.
Shall we proceed with our assigned duties?
You weren't this aloof 6 years ago. Or don't you remember?
There is nothing wrong with my memory.
Well, there's something wrong with the rest of you. You're not even looking at me.
I'm familiar with your appearance.
The half-human, half-Klingon, something that was very new at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And my God, she was a badass. She was a special ambassador, Federation ambassador, an emissary. And she was also the mother of Alexander.
Alexander.
And, her, when she was introduced in the second season, I loved her immediately. And the way she stood up to Worf and the way she interacted with Picard. Susie Plaxton was brought back. She played a Vulcan. They brought her back. And my God, I thought her performance was ferocious as K'Ehleyr. I loved her. And the fact that Star Trek went to a very dark place with her fate, where, and when she was murdered by Duras, and then Worf, Alexander sees his dead mother, and Worf says, "Look," that look way that he does. This is death. Look at this. I don't know if that was great parenting, but it was certainly Klingon parenting.
That's exactly what I said to my children.
Yes, but I love this. I love this character and the fact that they brought her back and she participated in the whole Klingon Civil War discommendation storyline and was instrumental in all of that. I was really sorry to see her get killed, but they did it. If a character has to go, they gave her one of the great deaths in Star Trek history. And it was shocking. But her character, man, she was tremendous and gave us insight into the Klingon culture that we'd never really had before. And their relationship, I thought, was really credible. I thought when they were together that her, Susie Plaxton and Michael Dorn really played it very, very well. And she just lit up the screen.
Yeah, she did. She played it with a twinkle in her eye, didn't she?
Yes, she did.
Yeah. No, it was great. And it's interesting that show worked so well. It was dabbling with serialization. It's like when it dabbled with serialization, the whole idea of the Klingon dominate the arc with the Klingons and Worf, and of course, obviously later with Picard and the family leading out of Best of Both Worlds. But when they dabbled with serialization, it really worked, and Kalar was a part of that. And it's a shame that they weren't more aggressive about pursuing serialization in the way that Deep Space Nine would a few years later.
Yeah, I think though that, with TV, I mean, our beloved Wise Guy did maybe things like Hill Street Blues might have, but there was really no serialization back then. They didn't do that. And yet when they did do it, and the whole Sins of the Father storyline turning into Reunion or Redemption 1 and 2.
Never mind. Yeah.
No,
I was just going to try and pronounce discommendation. Discommendation. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it was great stuff,
Pete
man.
Pot whistle.
And it was really interesting because Gene, never thought of Worf as a main character.
Right.
Yeah. He never thought of Worf as being one of the main, and didn't understand. I mean, Ron Moore tells the story about, they had to have Rick Berman just tell him, like, when they wanted to do Sins of the Father, Gene didn't want to do it. And they're like, Rick was like, just, you guys go do it. And I'll
Gene would say, no, Worf isn't one of our main characters. I think that's what he told Leonard Maizlish to tell the ex-wife. It's like, oh no, there's no connection to the original Star Trek. No, none at all. Well, you have Klingons, but they're not really important.
They're not the same ones. I mean, just look at them. They've
got crap different on their heads. We do not speak of it.
Because, that's the famous story is that, Gene would have to pay the ex-Mrs. Roddenberry on anything Star Trek, original Star Trek related. But if they did a new Star Trek, he wouldn't have to pay her. And that's why at first he was so reluctant to have any elements of the original Star Trek in Next Generation. It's very similar to what people say about Lucas and why he doesn't want the originals to come out, because then he has to pay Marcia. If that's whether that's apocryphal or not, that's the story.
Don't know.
Yeah. So okay, Kalar, great character, played by the great Susie Plaxton, who made this list twice now. And that brings us to number 59. And Ashley Edward Miller is back with another beloved. I don't know if beloved, but another Deep Space Nine character.
We talked about this we've talked about this again and again, but one of the great strengths of Deep Space Nine has been its casting for these amazing guest and supporting roles. The incredible actors that show was able to get and attract with the terrific writing that it demonstrated. And the character who's coming in at number 59 is no different. Played by the great Frank Langella, or as Mark Altman might say, Frank Langella.
No, I would say Frank Langella, one of my favorite actors, who's brilliant in the role of Minister Jarrow in the three-parter, the Circle trilogy on Deep Space Nine.
Yes, Minister Jarrow.
My name is Lee Nollis. Perhaps you've heard of me.
Guards, stop that woman.
What is this blasphemy?
I am Major Kira Nerys, and I come with proof that the Cardassians are behind Minister Jarrow's attempt to take control of the government.
Major Kira has long been an outspoken opponent of the provisional government, of reason, of progress, and now finally, of me. I'm honored to be included, Major, but I have no intention of allowing you to disrupt the orderly transition of power with these wild charges.
This is a manifest pad from a Krasari vessel. It bears the thumb scan of a Cardassian gull who transferred weapons to that ship. Those weapons were taken by the Krasari to the Circle. This coup will deliver Bajor back into the hands of its greatest enemies. Are you willing to live under Cardassian rule again?
I assure you there's nothing to these accusations.
Then you should have no objection to an inspection of this manifest, Minister.
No, of course not. We'll adjourn for the time being. And let me say that I completely support this investigation and fully intend to cooperate.
Sorry. Just keep wanting to go back to Frank Langella. The second season opening 3-parter, Homecoming, Circle, and The Siege. He's terrific. He's yet another Deep Space Nine villain with a very particular point of view. He's a Bajoran minister who very much not only wants to be out from under the heel of the Cardassians, he wants to be out from under the heel of the Federation. And he has been secretly buying up armaments so that the Bajoran military can be put into a position where they can say credibly that they don't need the Federation's protection anymore. But they've been moving against people who are supportive of having the Federation around. And he has as they usually do in the show, that he has a lot of great reasons.
He made a perfect call. It was the perfect call.
The perfect call.
There was nothing wrong with that call.
What he didn't know was that the arms were secretly being sold to him by the Cardassians, and it was all part of a Cardassian plot. And he's just Frank Langella is he is both accessible and at times when he needs to be terrifying. He doesn't come off as he never twirls the mustache.
Well, you know what's terrifying is that he's sleeping with Kai Wynn. That's terrifying.
That is terrifying. Can you imagine that? It'd be like watching animals try to murder each other in a cage.
I don't know, man. Kai Wynn's got to be a hell of a bounce. You know what I'm saying? I mean, come on.
No, not as much as Chiopecte.
No. I think Kai Wynn had it going on. I'm telling you.
Whether or not Minister Jara was worshiping at her temple,
I did that.
And showing her the prophet.
Yeah. It's true.
Is irrelevant.
I got the orb of me I want to show you.
Yeah. Smart character. Great.
I know this. Everyone's going to get mad. I'm sorry. We're just having a little bit of fun.
At least no one said wormhole.
Look, here's the thing. Here's the thing that was amazing about Frank Langella. Those of us of a certain age, remember, he was a huge megastar on Broadway. He did Dracula on Broadway and was a huge star. And then he does the 1978 John Badham adaptation of Dracula. Huge star. All through the 80s, he's in a bunch of movies.
Skeletor and Masters of the Universe, for God's sake.
Yeah. He was in the Ninth Gate.
He's in a lot of big movies. He's a consummate actor, stage and screen. And then he's on Star Trek. It's hard, you couldn't believe it. I mean, they had an Oscar winner in Louise Fletcher as Kai Wynn, and then Frank Langella, a Tony winner. I mean, this was a huge deal.
It was, and not only was it a huge deal, Deep Space Nine had gone out on its first season on a high. You had the 1-2 punch of Duet and In the Hands of the Prophets.
Yep.
And then they open it up with the first Star Trek 3-parter.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, you could say family, but but this was a designed
to be a 3-parter. Yeah.
And it was fascinating. And I think that the
it was even better when they remade it in the 6th season.
Yeah, I mean, in the it was a little rough. I mean, I think the second season of Deep Space Nine leaned heavily into the angry Bajorans, and they deserved to be angry. But that 3-parter, I remember I was like, wow, Star Trek was really reaching for something it had never done before.
Well, if you think about what was going on, and I mean, you kind of pointed out that the season 1 went out on a high of Duet, followed by In the Hands of the Prophets, and what was at the core of both of those episodes was the relationship between the Bajorans and the Cardassians, the history that was behind the show, right? The premise. And what the show discovered, I think, in the first season is that its premise worked pretty well.
Yeah.
At that time, its excuse for existing, the wormhole, didn't really work all that well. But what was going on in Bajor did. And, that 3-parter, I think, was the show kind of experimenting with, all right, well, how do we explore a single culture or a single conflict more deeply? How do we bring it out? How do we, express it in different characters? And eventually, that experimentation, I think, leads to, hey, what if, we found a way to make that work with the wormhole? God, I keep saying wormhole, and now every time I think, what if we made it work on the other side with the Dominion, right? And but to get there, I think they were trying to lean into what they had identified as their strength.
Well, I think one of the things that we love about Andor is it takes the political machinations of the Star Wars universe very seriously. And one of the great things about this troika of episodes of Deep Space Nine was it also took the politics of the Federation and the politics of dancing, and made them very real and very, and treated it in a way that was very compelling, which it hadn't always done in the past. Yeah, it was sort of like, oh, we can't violate the Prime Directive. Okay, we get that. But this created this really interesting tapestry of events, and the Bajorans and the Cardassians. It was
not in tapestry.
And the Federation and Deep Space Nine and Cisco being caught in the middle. And it was really interesting. And of course, it was laying the groundwork for what was to come. And at the heart of this was Frank Langella as Mr. Jarrow, who was a fantastic character. Very sinister, but at the same time, as Rob would say, he was an antagonist, not a villain, because he had a very strong point of view.
And also, by casting him, it immediately gave the goings-on a gravitas it might not have otherwise had if they had just cast somebody from central casting. Right, they probably could have found somebody great because, Junie Lowry and the casting people,
Ron Surma,
they did a great job. And but that was when they would go that way, like when they would get a Gene Simmons or a David Warner or somebody like that, they always went big. And this was a great get. And I remember when this first aired.
No Fred Astaire.
No. And this was 94, because Deep Space Nine. Oh, no, it would have started in 93, the second season, because it started in January of 93. And boy, what a get. And what a way to open this season, and what a way to say Deep Space Nine is here to play.
Yep, absolutely. And then speaking of Deep Space Nine, at number 58, it's another Deep Space Nine character. And, if you told me early on in Deep Space Nine's life that this character would make our list of 101 greatest Star Trek characters, I would have thought you were crazy. But the writers just developed this character and the actor and made it into something wonderful. And the loss of this actor, who was a friend of all of ours on this podcast, the great Aaron Eisenberg, was a terrible loss. He lived and breathed this character. He was sensational. Of course, I'm talking about the Ferengi Nog.
Great set tonight, Vic.
Thanks. Lots of familiar faces in the crowd. Did I see Ram and Lita out there?
They came for a while. What do you think about moving the crap tables over to the south wing and expanding the slot machines out into here?
Good idea. I'll think it over.
But we're supposed to meet with the architect tomorrow morning.
Not anymore. It's time for you to go, kid.
Go where?
You know where. It's time to end the program.
But we've got work to do. We have a casino to build.
No, we don't. This is just a fantasy. It's not real.
It's real to me, and it's real to you. And don't say it isn't. I know better.
You're right. It's very real to me. I'm a hologram, Nog. I'm not a person. Till you came along, I'd never been on for more than 6 or 7 hours straight.
I know. And now you're running all the time. Isn't it great?
Who started as sort of the annoying son of Rom, who would pal around with Jake on the promenade and get in all kinds of trouble. But as time went on, he decided that he didn't want to be like his uncle Quark. He didn't want to be this rascally rabbit that was stealing and profiting and taking supplies and working against it. But he wanted to be a member of Starfleet. And he goes to the academy, and he ends up being a great honor and a great pride to his family. And in one of the most powerful arcs in later seasons of Deep Space Nine, he loses a leg in a battle and has to accept, that this has happened. And with the help of Vic, I was going to say Vic Damone, with the help of
Vic K-Back,
Vic Fontaine, he kind of is able to deal with this PTSD and this horrible loss. And I mean, it's really great. And of course, we had a lot of fun with the great Aaron Eisenberg. We met him, Rob and I met him for the first time in Paris at a convention in Paris, where we spent many days enjoying and yelling "Sacre Bleu" out of car windows and partying and having a fantastic time.
It was fantastic.
And with him and Rod Roddenberry, actually.
And Max Grudenchik.
It was fun was had by all. And you know who was the guest next year? Michael Piller. I told Michael Piller what fun we had. He said, "I'd like to go to Paris." I said, "Well,
we'll always have Paris, Mark."
But Michelle Phillips was not there.
There's no truth to the fact that anyone called the character Legnog. Oh my God!
Oh man, too soon.
It's
So anyway, but Nog again, it's a testament to the writers on Deep Space Nine that they were able to take, which was basically a Wesley-like character on a Weasley-Wesley-like character on Deep Space Nine, and turn him into something so very special and brilliantly performed by the wonderful Aaron Eisenberg, and whose loss continues to be felt to this day.
Well, we should move to number 57 then,
which would be
that was a moment
Darren.
of silence.
Yeah,
it was a moment of silence.
We were taking a moment in memory of Aaron, who was such a wonderful. Well, clearly you have no sympathy.
You lack a heart, sir.
But
obviously I don't.
Yeah, he's like Picard. he had that little heart. He needs Pulaski to come and repair it. I wonder if Pulaski will be on our list. Okay, 57, Darren Doctorman. Tell us our
57. Next. I am enamored with a girl who is not real. Her name is Minuet.
What's your name? Tell me you love jazz.
My name is Minuet, and I love all jazz, except Dixieland.
Why not Dixieland?
You can't dance to it.
My girl. What's a knockout like you doing in a computer-generated gin joint like this?
Waiting for you.
Waiting for me? You can't be serious.
Oh, yes, Will. I've never been more serious in my life.
You've grown accustomed to her face.
Minuet.
That's right.
His name is Robert Paulson.
The trombone-loving holodeck hussy. No, she's not a hussy. She's a very good girl. And Riker falls for her madly, not knowing that she is a creation of the Bynar's culture and is merely an echo of their civilization in the computer. She's played by actress Carolyn McCormick with a very strange affectation. I mean, I think she's sort of playing like a fake girl a little bit. Certainly her makeup says that. And it's just very odd. But, obviously she is very memorable to Riker. And so much so that when Tomalak, or the image of Tomalak, probes Riker's mind for a family that he might have, she is the wife. And that's one of the clues that tell Riker that he is not in reality.
It says a lot that they're able to probe Riker's mind and he comes up with a holographic woman.
Well,
that's what they find.
It means that he has an internet addiction.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what else it means. And first of all, I think, she is a terrific character, and she's got, I think, a great chemistry as a character with Riker. Yeah, she loves the bone. And the actress, I think, has great chemistry with Frakes.
Yeah,
she does.
And what is telling to me is, I mean, okay, Riker and Troy, sure. What? Okay, I'm awake.
What?
Riker and Troy, Imzadi, whatever. Okay. But the relationship with Minuet felt real. It felt like it actually had some heat to it.
Well, it's
even Picard notices it.
It's because she actually reacted to him.
The Bynars knew Riker better than the writers did.
Yeah.
Or they knew humanity better. The Bynars knew what was up.
Well, what was so interesting, her performance, because there's two minuets. There's the minuet, the regular holodeck minuet, and then there's the one once they upgrade Microsoft 95 to a better, it gets booted to the next update.
Windows 2000, yeah.
By and then she's super minuet. And it's so interesting to see that, although it's kind of weird because she's not like quite that real in the original version. But of course, every time we've seen the holodeck, everyone's completely real.
Right.
But if you just go with it, I mean,
well, it's funny that, famously the Bynar said, you might have said no. Minuet would never say no.
No, exactly. But what a great character, and what a great hint of the things that were to come, that the show would really find itself and take off. And finally, a great role for John Frakes. And that came because Maurice Hurley, asked him a little bit about himself, and he talked about how he played the trombone.
He was also able to get that twinkle in his eye in his performance when he was playing opposite her.
Yeah. Yeah, he was great when you got to give him dialogue where he wasn't having to shout orders, where he could actually have a conversation. I mean, that's why he's able to play so well off of, other actors, in conversation, rather than the sort of stoic man in command, which is just not all that interesting.
Yeah, okay, when he's looking down his nose, he's not very interesting.
But that's why even with Picard season 2, with the Nepenthe is an episode that people seem to like, because just because it's Riker and Troy, getting to talk to each other and have a conversation
and making pizza.
Because what isn't exciting about that? Okay, so number 56, we're back to Ashley Edward Miller, and I bet that must mean we're back on board Deep Space Nine.
We are indeed back. On Deep Space Nine. Now, a mere few minutes ago, we were talking about the very strong 1-2 punch that the first season of Deep Space Nine went out on. And the first of those punches was an episode called Duet, which, people who are regular listeners to this podcast, and especially people who've listened to our holiday specials, know that it came in rather high in our list of great Star Trek episodes. The last time we did this exercise.
How high was it?
I want to say it was at least in the top 20. I feel like it might have been in the top 10, but I could be wrong. Because I don't have the list sitting in front of me, but I know it was high. But it's a great episode. It's on paper, it's an episode about Major Kira, but the show is just stolen and then owned by actor Harris Yulin, actor of film, stage, and television, who is playing a file clerk named Amin Maritza.
Let me guess. You've come back to learn the secret of my filing system.
I know all your secrets now.
Is that so?
What did you do? Did you kill the real Maritza so you could take his place? Well, you'll pay for that death and all the others you're responsible for.
Well, I don't think I could pay for all of them, Major. There were so many. And you can only execute me once.
It's my only regret. But I'll settle for knowing that Bajor will finally have the satisfaction of punishing the butcher of Galatep.
Tell me, Major, did you figure this out all by yourself? Or did you have help from your Federation masters?
I'll let you wonder about that. It'll keep you occupied while we're waiting for the provisional government to prepare your war crimes tribunal.
War crimes? How could there be war crimes when there hasn't been a war? Oh, I can understand your wish that there had been a war. Your need to indulge some pathetic fantasy about brave Bajoran soldiers marching to honorable defeat. But in fact, Major, you and I know there was no war, no glory. Bajor didn't resist. It surrendered.
The Bajorans were a peaceful people before you came. We offered no threat to you. We could never understand why you had to be so brutal.
Well, we can't have that, Major. I want no more secrets between us. Anything you don't understand, I'll explain to you.
Thank you, but I think I've heard enough of your lies.
What lies? You mean my failure to divulge my true identity? Believe me, Major, I yearned to tell you, but I knew how much more satisfaction you would have if you found out for yourself, and that was my only deception. Maritza was a magnificent file clerk, and I, Gul Dahil, I hope you'll not think it immodest of me to say so, but I was a magnificent leader. Oh, you never saw Galatep at its height. For a labor camp, it was the very model of order and efficiency. And why? For that, you have to look to the top, to me!
Who was a file clerk at a camp, not like a summer camp, but like a concentration camp, a work camp, during the occupation of Bajor. And in the episode when we first meet him, we are led to believe that he is a character named Gul Dahil, who was the commandant of that camp and was responsible for incredible atrocities. And
he was like Werner Kempler.
Yeah, and what Kira discovers over the course of the episode is that, in fact, it can't possibly be Gul Darhe'el. So what is it? What is it that drives this man to pretend to be Gul Darhe'el, knowing that now that he is in captivity, that the Bajorans will execute him, right? That he will pay the ultimate price for his crimes. And Harris Yulin gives just a stunning performance, an awesome speech that I would compare favorably to Stellan Skarsgård's speech at the end of episode 10?
Pandora? Yeah, that was episode 10, yeah.
Where he
Clink's speech in Hogan's Heroes.
Yes, exactly. It's I see nothing. Oh, that's
Schultz.
Sergeant Schultz. Sorry, Hogan. No, the explanation is it's awesome. It's fantastic, and he lays out how he watched all of these atrocities happen, and he did nothing. And this is the fate that he believes that he deserves. That if they knew he was just a file clerk, they would let him go. And he wouldn't be punished. And he desperately wants to be punished because it's the only way that he knows to process the guilt for his inaction in the face of horror. He's an awesome character. He's incredibly well written. And just next level performance by Harris Yulin.
Yeah, I gotta say, this is another bottle show. This is another, like the Drumhead after it. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Like the Drumhead, this was an episode that was made at the end of the season. It was the penultimate episode of the season. Save money. And it is certainly probably the best episode of the first season. It's one of the best episodes of Deep Space Nine, one of the best episodes of Star Trek. And again, it's about something. It's a very powerful performance, as you said, from Harris Yulin as Maritza. And it says a lot about culpability and sadly, the issues that it's dealing with. It was very much Robert Shaw's play, The Man in Glass Booth, which was about the Holocaust and the Nazis. But, this could just as easily be now about the Russian war against Ukraine. I mean, unfortunately, it's just as relevant now as ever. And it's a very powerful episode. But in this case, we're talking about characters, and what a memorable and a great character with a tour de force performance by Harris Yulin. And of course, Nana was his sparring partner and deserves equal amount of credit for the wonderful performance she gives.
Completely. She's awesome.
Yeah. Okay. And that brings us to number 55. And Darren, the air is the air.
Whatever your name is.
Darren,
Aaron Ackerman.
The air is the air, is it not, Darren?
It is, in fact. And where else are we going to go to get all of Vulcan in one package? Then the amazing T'Pau, the only person to turn down a seat in a Federation Council.
Spoke. Are our ceremonies for Outworlders?
They are not Outworlders. They are my friends.
T'Pau, as Nimoy said, let us know that Vulcan is a matriarchy. And it's quite wonderful to see the wonderful actress Celia Lofsky basically come and chew the scenery along with everybody else at Spock's ceremony. And it's famous that she couldn't really do the Vulcan hand signal. And
hurts worse than the uniform.
It hurts worse than the uniform. Apparently, her fingers were tied together by very thin thread, and she pops up her hand and then puts it back down because she couldn't hold it. But it
doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter because Celia Lofsky gives such weight to that role. As frail an older woman as she was, she really exuded power, and she could talk down anybody, and she could yell "Roika" louder than anyone, and she was really something to see. This symbol of all of Vulcan, and she's a really fascinating character. And one of the things about her character, and certainly in Amok Time, is that she is there to tell the audience what the heck is going on. And
she's Basil Exposition.
That's correct. She's given all these lines to explain to ostensibly Kirk and McCoy what is happening, but in reality, it's to help the audience understand what's happening.
It is to the death.
This is to the death. I thought you knew, idiots. Spock is in the middle of the plateau, the blood fever. It's really fascinating. And in Ted Sturgeon's script for the episode, it's really fun to get this glimpse of Spock's history.
Well, Ted and the uncredited rewrite of DC Fontana,
of course,
and obviously. But I was just going to say they create an entire culture out of whole cloth. It's amazing.
That's correct.
The ancient civilization with the music and the instruments and the costumes and the performances. It sells it. It's amazing. It's amazing. I mean, it's just an extraordinary. What a way to start a season.
How would it have been to have a Vulcan gong show?
I couldn't even watch the other Gong Show with Chuck Barris. But this was just, remarkable. And Celia Orlovsky has such gravitas in the role, and she's so great.
And of course, the character was brought back in.
Well, I was just going to say, she comes back in Enterprise.
Season 4 of Enterprise, and it's a fun episode to sort of see her beginnings, and she plays a pivotal role in whatever Archer is up to. So that's great. But my T'Pau is from the 60s, and there she will stay.
I think, though, that it should also be recognized that this was also one of the forward-thinking aspects of Star Trek, in that making this society, it was unexpected that Vulcan was a matriarchy, much less have a woman in a role. I mean, people talk about the go-go boots and the mini skirts, and it's always forgotten what strong female characters that the original series brought us. And T'Pau might very well be the strongest of all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I mean, even the viewer, I remember as a kid thinking, I'm not going to cross her.
Yeah.
I mean,
she's scary. She was scary.
But she demanded respect.
Yeah.
Even Captain Kirk had a kind of was deferential to her.
Of course.
Yes.
Yeah. It's they had to fool her. Boy, I'd like to find out when she found out that Spock was still alive.
She was probably pissed off.
Yeah,
Kirk was still alive. Spock was always
alive. When Kirk was still alive. So, but a great character, great episode, super memorable. And again, William Ware Tice, he has this. Everyone says, "Oh, he does all the sexy stuff," and it's like something you threw on and missed. But look at that.
No, he's a designer for all seasons.
Yeah, look at what he did with T'Pau.
Yeah,
you totally believe that she is, this high-ranking person in Vulcan society. I mean, it's pretty amazing. Okay, well, that brings us number 54, and we talked about him just a minuet ago, and of course, we're talking about none other than William T. Riker.
What am I still doing here? Deanna, I pushed myself hard to get this far. I sacrificed a lot. I always said I wanted my own command, and yet something's holding me back. Is it wrong for me to want to stay?
What do you think?
Maybe I'm just afraid of the big chair.
I don't think so.
The captain says Shelby reminds him of the way that I used to be. And he's right. She comes in here full of drive and ambition, impatient, taking risks. I look at her and I wonder what happened to those things in me. I liked those things about me. I've lost something.
You mean you're older? More experienced? A little more seasoned?
Seasoned? It's a horrible thing to say to a man.
I don't think you've lost a thing. And I think you've gained more than you realize. You're much more comfortable with yourself than you used to be.
Maybe that's the problem. I'm too comfortable here.
I'm not sure I know what that means. You're happy here. Happier than I've ever known you to be. So, it comes down to a simple question. What do you want, Will Riker?
the man of the nautical beard. It's amazing how what a difference a beard can make.
Yeah.
Because of course, William T. Riker was very milquetoast that first season of Next Gen, and then during the off season, during the writer's strike, he shows up at the office, say hello to Gene. He has a beard that he's sporting, and Gene says, "Oh, I like the beard. Why don't we keep it? It's very nautical." Yeah. And much like Avery, many years later,
in the first season, the biggest decision he made was trying to have an apple.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I mean, they didn't really know what to do with him. They knew he was kind of like son of Kirk, but we all know how those work out. Like son of Godzilla, son of Kong, never very good. So, but then Riker, they started to discover what to do with Riker, and it suddenly became a much more interesting character. And to his credit, John Frakes is terrific in the role, and later became a very accomplished and talented director. He directed First Contact. He directed some of the best episodes of Next Generation, went on and directed for many other shows as well. And it's a really fun character. And, I always remember back in the day when I would interview him for Cinefantastic, and he would always say, even at the very end of Next Generation, he said, I miss that we never had, he said, the irony and the relationship that Kirk, Spock, and McCoy had in the original series. We just never had that on this show. And so like even then he would acknowledge that like there was just something missing in the way that these characters were written, which isn't to say Next Generation was a great show. It was, and these were great characters, but it was just
there was no conflict. Sorry.
Yeah, because there was no conflict. And
conflict.
They also didn't, they gave him a father in the second season that he was estranged from, but they never made Riker a fully realized person.
Well, they did.
They did.
When they split him into two characters, and the other one is a good
chances.
Actually, I was going to say that in rising the defense of Will Riker, who, by the way, got fired upon more than anybody in Star Trek history. Fire at will. That was always, all of the time. He was, like, I loved him in both parts of Best of Both Worlds. I think, he found his voice in that, right? Especially, once
he's great in Best of Both Worlds. Going up against Shelby.
Well, because he had...
But
he
had
we are about to intervene. That's awesome.
But he had Shelby. He had somebody that he could play off of who's actually gunning for his job.
Exactly.
And what I mean was they had a great actor in Frakes, but they didn't give him enough of a personality.
Yeah.
He was not a very nuanced guy. And when they gave him something like, he plays trombone, but they should have filled his character with jazz, not playing it. But he was a jazzy guy.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And they needed
never
Shelby
did that
for him, all the time, right?
Well,
because when was he better than you go over my head like that again? I will snap you back so hard you'll think you're a first year cadet again. I'm like, you go.
Because he's such a dynamic guy in real life.
Yeah.
He's such an interesting, avuncular, personable, interesting guy. And they never really captured that in the character. And it's interesting because you're right. Best of Both Worlds is fantastic. And occasionally you see glimmers of it in Frame of Mind, which is really interesting. And then in First Contact, the episode.
With Pete Newirth. I've always wanted to make love to an alien. Okay.
Which is really fun. And whenever he got to play these mirror versions, like a Future Imperfect or Parallels or stuff like that, it was always some fun stuff to be mined there. But ultimately, that was definitely an element that was lacking from the show. And I'm looking forward to seeing what Terry does with him in Picard season 3.
Can I just confirm?
Nope.
No, just peak Riker. He is having the best.
Is that
time.
another clone?
Yeah, peak
Riker.
There's peak Tom
in
and Will.
season 3. He's never been better, and he's never had more of an opportunity to shine.
Yeah, because he's been looking. He's been looking for those chances to shine. You want to see him embrace. Get something to chew on, something meaty. It almost felt like they always gave it to Patrick because Patrick was number one on the call sheet, and he was the star, and then Data was the quirky, weird guy. And he had this Spock-like character. But it's like, they never really knew exactly what to do with Riker. And
Lieutenant Commander Data, the quirky, weird guy.
But there are some great episodes. You're absolutely right about Best of Both Worlds. Boy, and I think part of the thing that worked against him was he was always saying no to command. and it made him look weak. It was like, wait a second. At what point are you going to say yes? And, send him away on another ship for a couple episodes, and destroy it and then have him come back or whatever you need to do. But by him turning down and wanting to stay as the number 2, that doesn't make him cool.
Obviously, his career advisor was not George Takei.
Right. Which they made text in Best of Both Worlds. Like why somebody like you sits in the shadow of a great man.
Right.
Right. It's like, it's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, because that was so easy. He could have said yes, and then the ship was destroyed and he couldn't go. But it's like the lack of ambition, it's kind of like he's kind of a little too laid back. It's like, well, I still have a lot to learn from you, Captain Picard. It's like okay, it's been 7 seasons. Like, yeah, when are you going to, come on.
Got a lot of healthcare secrets.
Here? You've learned you don't surrender the ship.
Yeah.
Oh, exactly. That's not what you learned from Picard.
Oh, yeah, right. You learn
you learn to play the flute.
Yeah, that's cool.
Oh, okay.
Even though you're a saxophonist.
Okay.
Or trombonist or whatever.
Okay, well, that's William T. Riker. William T. Riker at number 54. Brings number 53. Ashley, tell us who or what is waiting for us at number 53.
Well, I'll tell you what's waiting for us at number 53. The beginning, the end, the one who is many, the Borg.
The Borg have a collective consciousness. There are no individuals.
I am the beginning, the end, the one who is many. I am the Borg.
Greetings. I am curious. Do you control the Borg Collective?
You imply a disparity where none exists. I am the collective.
Perhaps I should rephrase the question. I wish to understand the organizational relationships. Are you their leader?
I bring order to chaos.
An interesting, if cryptic, response.
You are in chaos, Data. You are the contradiction, a machine who wishes to be human.
Since you seem to know so much about me, you must be aware that I am programmed to evolve, to better myself.
We too are on a quest to better ourselves, evolving toward a state of perfection.
Forgive me, but the Borg do not evolve. They conquer.
By assimilating other beings into our collective, we are bringing them closer to perfection.
Somehow, I question your motives.
That is because you haven't been properly stimulated.
The Borg Queen, who first appeared in Star Trek First Contact, later appeared
or some would say first appeared in Hellraiser.
Yes, also true. Later appeared in several episodes of Star Trek Voyager, originally played by Alice Krige, who played her in Star Trek First Contact, and then returned to the role for the end of Voyager, for Endgame, after being played for several episodes by Susanna Thompson. I mean, the thing about the Borg Queen that was cool. Okay, so I'm going to present two sides of an argument here. On one hand, as a character, especially as Alice Krige played her, she was incredibly interesting. She had exactly the right seductive quality that you needed from her. And, the fact that she was, in pieces and she had to be constructed, that was a cool idea. The choices that Alice Krige made in terms of how she used her voice, especially when one of the strongest associations I think we have with the Borg, other than it's dudes walking around like in, clunky, like cyber gimp suits, is, that choral quality to their voice, speaking in unison. So if you're going to have a character who speaks and it is only them, they can't sound like this. It's like they have to have a voice
like Jerry Lewis.
Hey, lady. "Hey, Picard." They have to have a voice that like sells that they're the Borg. And she feels scary, like legit scary. It's like, I mean, you make sort of the Hellraiser joke, but it's kind of true. Like she does have a very Clive Barker feel to her, a very Cenobite feel to her, which I groove on, which I completely dig.
Well,
and I love.
Honestly, she's more like the Queen in Captain EO.
Well, that was one of the influences on her, apparently. Although it's like the Captain EO thing is a little weird. It's like, but we can have a whole conversation about Captain EO and Michael Jackson. Just show me your children. Neither here nor there. On the other side, right. It has nothing to do with the character. It has to do with like the conception of the Borg. I think that the Borg were always scariest when they did not have a single voice.
Yes.
They were the most alien then. They were the most unreasonable in the best possible way. And the moment that they were given a voice, even when it was locutus, right? When it was kind of scary because it was our Picard who had been changed and that's why it worked. It diminished them. And the fact that it kept coming back to that, I think, diminished them. The Borg are definitely an alien race that, you're sort of excited when you hear that they're coming back. But then you're like, is that really going to make me feel less?
They were kind of written out of being frightening.
Yeah, exactly. They just kept showing up and they weren't scary anymore. And then apparently, I guess the Borg Queen came back for some other show.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's funny because, again, we're treading on these episodes rather than the characters.
Right.
I think we all agree that the Borg were much more interesting without a queen, it wasn't a beehive. It was, you couldn't stop with them. You couldn't reason. They were just this giant entity that was all connected. And that was like in Q-Who, which was terrifying, and obviously, Locutus and Best of Both Worlds was terrifying. They used, Picard to communicate with us. That made sense. Now, when they introduced the character of the Borg Queen at First Contact, again, it's not about whether or not they did. It exists, right? Okay. They didn't go the way we would have gone. Does the Borg Queen as a character, is that interesting? Yes. And that's largely attributable to Alice Krige, who did such a wonderful job of making her creepy and cool. And obviously ILM, who does that great thing where they lower her into the body and connect the head and all that. That was in the trailer and we all loved that moment and thought it was really cool. So in that sense, yes, the Borg Queen is a great character. Whether it was good for the Borg, I mean, my God, I was watching Pluto this weekend and Descent was on, which I always remember being an awful episode. And, I watched it again and I realized, wow, this is an awful episode. This is an atrocious episode.
Well, I have to say, the one thing about it's, unfortunately, the great thing about the Borg was it could have been an incredible science fiction concept. And I remember watching it in my own mind. I thought, what if an idea to become transhuman, using technology to elongate life or whatever, kind of like the way that the Will Smith I Am Legend movie played out, like, oh, we have a cure for cancer. And it turns out, no, you don't.
There's just one catch.
Yeah, and the thing about the Borg is that it's technology run amok and it is consuming sentient life. And there is no intelligence behind it. Like, that's what I got from Q-Who. That's what, like Mark was going for. The thing about Alex Krige is that she, I mean, my God, as far as a pulp sci-fi fantasy villainess, she threw her all into that performance. Let your futures end or whatever. I mean, it was watching her in that movie.
Look, she'll even blow on your arm hair.
I mean, it was, and I would say this, it did the antithesis of what I want from Star Trek. It created a pulp sci-fi villainous, the Darth Vader of the Star Trek universe, but female. And from that perspective, as much as I philosophically argue against what that represents, it really worked for First Contact.
She's there so we don't have to see thousands and thousands of Borg drones walking around the Enterprise.
Yeah, and I mean, she's just fun.
Yeah, well, she'd be fun to hang out with.
I hate the conception of her. I I hate that it led Star Trek down a road I wish it never went down. On
a long road, getting from there. No, sorry, that's a different.
But you know what I mean. It was it was unfortunate, but and people take the wrong lessons away from the Borg Queen.
Yeah.
Yes, they do.
And then she was
great.
Ubiquitous in Voyager. When Susanna Thompson.
I think that sometimes Star Trek excels at learning the wrong lessons from itself.
So that brings us to number 52. Darren Doctorman is back with an interesting pairing.
Well, these two characters are basically the same character, barring rules from the WGA. And I'm, of course, talking about Nick Locarno, a cadet first class in Starfleet Academy, and Tom Paris.
That ship was under the command of another former Starfleet officer named Chakotay. I understand you knew him.
That's right.
The two of you didn't get along too well, I'm told.
Chakotay will tell you he left Starfleet on principle, to defend his home colony from the Cardassians. I, on the other hand, was forced to resign. He considered me a mercenary, willing to fight for anyone who'd pay my bar bills. Trouble is, he was right. I have no problem helping you track down my friends in the Maquis, Captain. All I need to know from you is what's in it for me.
You help us find that ship, we help you at your next outmate review.
Uh-huh.
Officially, you'd be a Starfleet observer during the mission.
Observer? Oh, hell, I'm the best pilot you could have.
You'll be an observer. When it's over, you're cut loose.
Story of my life.
They are, look, let's face it, they are the same character. They were written to be the same character until there was a change in policy by Rick Berman, and they are played by the same actor. That people say was a mistake. I don't think it was a mistake, not at all. Look, I'm not a great fan of Tom Paris as a character because he's kind of two-dimensional. He's just sort of grumpy, you know, and he doesn't like whatever situation he's in. Okay, that's fine. But I actually liked Nick Locarno better because he at least was trying to do good. He made bad decisions, but he was trying to be the best. And striving to do that and failing is far more interesting than being sort of half-assed and being grumpy with your situation like Tom Paris was. I like the fact that that Nick Locarno was sort of looked up to by Wesley Crusher, and he sort of fell out of grace for just one silly mistake. Okay, it cost a life. So what? People die every day. Space is dangerous.
Oh my gosh!
But and of course, I don't think that Tom Paris's character was used very effectively in Voyager. I think he was sort of overshadowed by other characters around.
Literally all of them.
Yeah. He had a couple good moments, but not very many. I think Robert Duncan McNeil is a great actor, and I think he did his best with what he was given in both instances. But I would rather have had Nick Locarno in Voyager than Tom Paris.
Agree, and indulge me a moment to suggest that what worked about Nick Locarno is that he played very much like a young Jim Kirk.
Totally.
Who had
bad luck.
Yeah, bad luck and made bad
decisions.
Because he was young. Yep. He made a mistake because he was young.
Yeah.
And he had all the potential in the world, but he had a swagger to him that you don't generally see in the next generation. It's like, no wonder Wesley looked up to him, right? And and Robbie McNeil played that perfectly.
Totally.
And I think if that character had been explicitly brought to Voyager with that baggage, that it would have been I think it would have been a very different experience, even if he was largely fulfilling the same function. Because I think that like, oh, okay, I'm a young Jim Kirk who made a mistake. It's like, now I have a path towards redemption. Like with Tom Paris, he had something like that in his backstory, but it was backstory. It was all intellectual garbage.
None of it was present in his current being.
Not at all. You couldn't, there was no way for anybody in the world to write to that or to make that feel present or to make that feel like anything at all. Then he's just a helmsman who's played by Robbie McNeil, who's nice. And then once you file that edge off, you're basically stuck in like, I'm back to vanilla again, but you're stuck in that same vanilla land.
Is it tofu or is it vanilla?
It's the tofu and like, it's like vanilla everybody in Voyager tofu is Geordi LaForge, except like they're not. I mean, I'm not going to say that because they're all lovely people and there's a lot of great actors on that show. But he is just, he doesn't have that edge anymore. They assert the edge like they do with all those characters, but the edge is never present.
The guy was in prison. I mean, you're absolutely right.
And to his credit, Robbie McNeil realized he didn't have a lot to do, and like John, pursued a directing career and has been very successful at it, and has a good directing career. And again, lovely actor who was underserved by some of the writing. Okay, well, speaking of Voyager, that brings us back to Robert Meyer Burnett, number 51. We're still out there in the Delta Quadrant,
and we're going to get mail for this one.
This is a character that I'm deeply conflicted about, because in a way, she was a replacement. This character was not the character originally cast in the role. And after shooting for a day, they realized this character with the actress that was playing her didn't work. And they replaced her with a woman, an actress who was a staple of television at the time. She had been in many different shows. And I have to say, I always liked this actress. Why beat around the bush? It's Kate Mulgrew's Catherine Janeway.
On screen.
Our sensors show that you are trespassing on our vessel.
As I've already informed you, we're attempting to retrieve the console that caused this explosion.
If you attempt to remove anything from our ship, it will be considered an act of war.
I'm really easy to get along with most of the time. But I don't like bullies, and I don't like threats, and I don't like you, Cullen. You can try and stop us from getting to the truth, but I promise you, if you do, I will respond with all the unique technologies at my command. Janeway out.
And I have to say, I think, Mark, you and I might have watched the Voyager pilot together.
We did.
And I loved her. I thought she was terrific. She was commanding. There was a humanity in Catherine Janeway that did not deny her femininity. There's a moment in the pilot where she's communicating with her husband, and she leans down to communicate with him. And there was something very empathetic and very human, but at the same time, I believed her as a captain. Mm-hmm. And I really enjoyed her performance. The only thing was, I think she was always let down by the writing. They always made her do stupid things. Right. And as the commander of a starship, she was never allowed. They could never, as much as she was the first female captain lead actor on a Star Trek show, they never gave her her due. Right. And they always, and as much as I liked her in so many different episodes of the show. I liked her personal life and her holodeck business and all of that. They still always undercut her character by never allowing her to go full on captain.
Yeah.
They always wanted to make her too nice.
She was no Madge Sinclair, that's for sure.
She was no Madge Sinclair.
I loved, what they wanted her to be. I'll tell you, there was a moment where, and I can also say, not only was it the moment that hooked me, it was then the moment that completely unhooked me from this character. It was their first encounter with the Vidians in the Phage. Right. And at the end of that episode, man, she gives those guys a slap down. And she basically tells him, like, look, if you screw with me or anybody in my crew again, I am going to you up. It's like, and you believed her. Like, Kate Mulgrew sells it, and you're like, yeah. Like, you tell him. Like, let's see you kick some ass. And then the Vidians come back, and I'm like, she's going to punch him. She's going to kick him right squaw in their diseased little nuts. And then she doesn't do it. I'm like, okay, you lost me. She lost me right there.
I mean, I think that the great tragedy of this character, first of all, she's great in the role.
Yep.
100%. I really love her. And when X06 made a figure of her, I bought her immediately. I proudly, no, people bought her. She sold. I really love her. I love her performance, but my God, the writers never got a handle on what to do with her. Because I think they had a real problem reconciling the female, what is a woman and what is a captain.
Right.
And they never could, like, I was really interested in what does the feminine bring to the captaincy that a male can't? And I would have thought that would have been very, very interesting, especially in Starfleet. What is when you come, and that is a great quality to have. When you're a woman, how do you deal with a space amoeba? Do you deal with it differently than Captain Kirk would have? Because, I mean, and I thought that would have been like, what I love to see is when you take the traits that characters have and build on them and do something new and interesting. And with Catherine Janeway, I always felt that sometimes they would allow her to be a woman, but most of the time they relegated her to this generic captain role.
Right.
And that they wouldn't let her go full on captain, because then somebody would pull back and go, oh, wait a minute, but she's a woman too. Like, no, she's a Starfleet captain. She's earned her commission. She's there for a reason, thrown into the deep end of the pool. Let her be a fucking freaking badass.
Yeah.
And
I felt they never, but she was really good. She was a consummate actress, and she tore up the part when she was given something great to do. Like, I think of like Year of Hell.
Mm-hmm.
It was
She's
great.
awesome in Year of Hell.
She kicks ass, and I want to see more of that. I mean, she was never bad, but she was all over the place. It was a very schizophrenic portrayal of a character, but I still loved her. She acquitted herself admirably. And in Endgame, I loved seeing her. Susanna Thompson, she's going head to head. It's great.
I mean, to me, the net effect of all that for the character, as opposed to the characterization in the moment by the actress, and in certain scenes as they were written in the context of certain episodes, is that as a captain, I'm like, how the hell did she get promoted to admiral? Like, how did that happen?
Right.
But within those moments, like when she shines, right?
She never phoned it in, man. She gave it her all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you locked on to something that's really important. They wrote her like a Distaff Picard. It was, and rather than giving her own quirks and foibles and unique qualities, and
she doesn't drink tea, she drinks coffee.
Right.
Yeah, so that's the difference.
And that's too bad, because she just ate that role up, and she was great. But they didn't, they didn't embrace the idea of the, first female captain on Star Trek, and it could have been so interesting. And it's like they didn't want to really give her like relationships, because they felt, oh, that's too, that's not, and it's like, well, why? And it's just, we talked about this before. They never really embraced the whole idea of being so far away and the chance they would never get home. So it wouldn't just be a ship with a crew and ranks and just like any other thing, because they may never come home. And at some point that would break down, or they would intentionally reorient the whole thing. And it's just like, it's so many missed opportunities, because ultimately it was attempting to capture lightning, the next generation lightning in the bottle again. And it never did 100%.
They should have let it be its own lightning in a different bottle.
It is interesting to see her come back in Star Trek Prodigy, first as a hologram and then as the character, and how they're utilizing her there. And, it's too bad that she's not back in live action where she should be.
Okay, and that brings us coming out of number 51 to wrap up to part 4 of our countdown. Number 50, Darren Dochterman, tell us.
Number 50. Here we are at a little past the halfway mark. And the actress who played this character, when she was a little girl, she would watch Star Trek. And she would look at the screen and she would see Nichelle Nichols up there playing Lieutenant Uhura. And Lieutenant Uhura was a beacon for her because she saw a black woman on TV and her quote, "She ain't no maid." I've always loved that story because, of course, years later, Whoopi Goldberg became a powerhouse actress and a movie star, and she was still a Star Trek fan. And when the second season of Star Trek The Next Generation was starting up, she made it known to Gene Roddenberry that she would have loved to be a part of The Next Generation. And so Gene Roddenberry created the character of Guinan.
May I speak to you, Captain?
Actually, Guinan...
You know, Picard and I used to talk every now and then when one of us needed to. I guess I'm just used to having the captain's ear.
What's on your mind?
I've heard a lot of people talking down in 10 Forward. They expect to be dead in the next day or so. They trust you. They like you. But they don't believe anyone can save them.
I'm not sure anyone can.
When a man is convinced he's going to die tomorrow, he'll probably find a way to make it happen. The only one who can turn this around is you.
I'll do the best I can.
You're going to have to do something you don't want to do. You have to let go of Picard.
Maybe you haven't heard. I tried to kill him yesterday.
You tried to kill whatever that is on the Borg ship, not Picard. Picard is still here with us, in this room. If he had died, it would be easier, but he didn't. It took him from us a piece at a time. Did he ever tell you why we're so close?
No.
Oh. Then let me just say that our relationship is beyond friendship, beyond family. And I will let him go. And you must do the same. There can only be one captain.
It's not that simple. This was his crew. He wrote the book on this ship.
If the Borg know everything he knows, it's time to throw that book away. You must let him go, Riker. It's the only way to beat him. The only way to save him. And that is now your chair, Captain.
The name at least comes from the famous bar owner and perhaps Madam Texas Guinan from the 1800s. And Guinan is the ostensibly the bartender of 10 Forward, in season 2, the brand new lounge and bar, and also restaurant. You can get ice cream there.
Where we should point out, it was called 10 Forward because it was on deck 10.
Yes.
And it was the furthest. That's why it was called that.
Yeah. It wasn't because it was on a certain street in L.A.
Just saying.
Jesus Christ. Because of anything else. Let's just say that right now. And I don't care. But yes, 10 Forward is a location on the Enterprise. And that's where the bar was. Look, the character of Guinan is fascinating because of how they wrote her. They wrote her as a wise, quote, old woman, but she wasn't old. But we learn later she is incredibly old. She was around, we learn, hanging out with Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain.
She was around when Jesus Christ had his moment of doubt and pain.
Well, maybe. We don't know that yet. But who knows?
Big Jagger does.
Well,
he probably, her and him.
Well, she was, she did date Frank Langella for a while.
There you go.
There you go.
A little Deep Space Nine, Next Generation crossover.
Sorry,
Deep
Darren.
Space indeed.
I'm trying to tell a story here.
Sorry.
No, I'm not. I'm just making it up as I go, as usual. But look, Guinan's every little bit that we learn about Guinan's people and the mystery of her made her very interesting. No. It made her very interesting. Look, when she confronts Q with her strange,
that was great.
hands,
that was the only time.
Great.
That was great. In Q-Who, that was great. But once you get to Generations, and she's escaping the Nexus,
I'm not talking about
Times
the movies,
Arrow, where she's hanging out with Mark Twain.
Shut up.
I'm just telling you, it's not interesting.
I know you're telling me. I'm telling you.
No, I'm telling you. Let me do something.
I thought that in the series, every little bit that we learned about Guinan and her people was interesting. And it was completely thrown out with Generations because it sort of gave a silly backstory that didn't really make any sense. And why should she know everything about the Nexus? It's silly. So, look, I like the character of Guinan in Next Gen. And that's fine. That's all it should be.
She comes from a race of listeners.
Yeah, they listen.
None that are on the show.
Yeah, we're all talkers. I think I'm going to try to split the difference between Mark and Darren. Maybe that's my job.
Right down the middle.
Right down the middle. That I think whenever we learned things about Guinan in a way that raised a question about Guinan, it worked.
Yes.
Whenever we learned things that
gave an answer.
Did you know?
Yep.
It
was like
not
Lost.
Work.
Yes.
So again, the best of both worlds example. It's like, did Captain Picard ever tell you, why we're so close? Just suffice it to say that what we are is beyond friendship. It's beyond family.
Mm-hmm.
And I never want to know what that means.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we still don't know what that means.
We still don't know what that means.
And she's the MacGuffin for Yesterday's Enterprise, too, which we quite don't know.
That's right. But it tells
she's
you things
great
that are
in Yesterday's Enterprise.
Yep.
Yeah, no, but that's good because you don't quite know.
She's the canary in the coal mine.
No. In the Nexus? No. It's like, no.
It's like being wrapped in joy.
Almond Joy has not.
Well, it's interesting you say the word wrapped because I think that wraps this episode.
Yeah, I do. I think so. I just can't believe 30 years later we're still bagging on Generations. I can't believe it.
I only wish that everyone that listens to this podcast could have seen you as we walked out of the theater on the Paramount lot. You and I had known each other for only a couple months back then. I'd met you at Comic-Con in July. This was in November.
In July.
Man. It was a thing of beauty.
I was so irate that day after seeing Generations.
So was I, but you got me on the lot, and I'm like, dude, I don't want to get thrown off this lot.
I was so excited about that movie. I was
wouldn't
so
have been
excited.
the first time, wouldn't have been the last time.
Yeah, well.
And it wouldn't be the last time coming out of Paramount Theater we threw a fit either.
No. But how great was it that just recently we all got to go back to the Paramount lot and see the director's edition of the motion picture.
Well, I see you brought it all home. It's totally cyclical.
Yeah,
we started with the Star Trek the Motion Picture, and we ended with Star Trek the Motion Picture.
Which is pretty much my entire fandom. That's the way it should be.
Is Decker going to make our list? We'll find out. I don't know. Leah's already been on the list.
Decker, I don't even know her.
How about
what about Ensign Perez?
Ensign Perez could be. Who knows?
Or
what about
transporter guy? Whatever
the
came
transporter guy?
back.
What about
long.
Commander Branch?
The other guy. Commander Branch.
Epsilon 9.
Epsilon 9, yeah.
You know what? Who should be number one? Because he could be anything. Admiral Nagura.
That's right.
He should be number
Patrick
one.
McGowan.
Patrick McGowan.
Patrick McGowan is
you are number 2.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, listen. This was another great installment of our 101 holiday countdown. We'll be back next time with part 5 yes. of our holiday countdown with all 4 of us. And it'll be even more like being wrapped in joy. So we hope you'll join us. And of course, you'll rate us 5 stars wherever you listen to podcasts. And of course, you can continue to follow us on Instagram at Inglorious Treksperts. You can follow us on Facebook at Inglorious Trek, and hopefully still on Twitter at Inglorious Trek. And if not, maybe we might make the move somewhere else. But right now, we're still on Twitter, and you can find us there. And you can follow Rob daily at the Burnettwork
on YouTube.
And
or you go to his house.
YouTube. Or don't encourage that.
You know,
nobody. Well,
I had someone show up randomly at my house in the summer. It was very disconcerting.
Weird. That's very scary. You have a stalker.
Hey, I've apologized about that again and again. I just wanted to see you. Okay.
You know, it was okay. It was fine. We got to sit.
It was, of course, Rob became best friends with them, of course.
No.
Wow.
I did.
You'll talk to anyone.
It's like homeless people in San Diego at Comic-Con. Remember that?
Oh, yes, we do.
We remember.
Fact, we were on that street corner. We were talking about the days of Lisa Ely and you on the corner of, Anyway.
Yes.
Okay. That's for another time, another place. That was Space 1999. We can't talk. Best Space 1999 character.
Wow, that was pretty great. Another time, another place.
We're going to do that. The top 1,099 Space 1999 characters.
By the way, Mark, I got to give a big shout out. The people listening to this can't see it, but Mark is wearing an awesome Tron t-shirt.
Yes, he is.
It is true.
I am watching. I am wearing a Tron t-shirt.
It's a tribute to David Warner.
Yep, the late, great David Warner, who will not be on this list as St.
John Talbot.
St. John Talbot, yeah.
Gentlemen, I'm Caitlin Dar. Is she on the list?
We'll find out. You got to stay and find out.
Should be number one on everyone's character.
Well, after having talked to Cynthia Gao, I would agree with you.
Yes. Yeah, I'll bet.
She's quite delightful.
Go Bill.
And she really got screwed over by it was much like the Robin Curtis thing where she got some bad direction.
Listen to our episode featuring.
Well, by the time this drops, that one will have already aired. So
I did not know you interviewed her. You didn't tell me.
Oh, we did. We
you got to follow our Facebook and.
I do, but I missed that one.
What is Facebooking?
Why didn't you call me, man? I want to meet her.
What is that she says in all her yesterdays? What is
Starbucking?
Oh, what's Star? Oh, that's Starbucking. That's
not our yesterday.
It's the same thing in that awful. Actually, that had a good premise. That Galactica. Remember, they're imprisoned for the crimes of their ancestors.
Right.
So they're all in prison, and the guards are descendants of the guards, and the prisoners are descendants of the prisoners. That's like an interesting premise.
What's library?
Is it though? Is that just writers drunk after a 4-martini lunch? Going,
well, remember he had Cora, the Viper, with the AI, the Cora AI. That would
you don't drink at lunch. Come on,
you're right.
Join us next week for another.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's true. Join us.
You're not on the clock, then. Come on.
Well, anyway, so on that note, like this countdown hasn't been long enough. On behalf of Robert Meyer Burnett, Ashley Edward Miller, Darren Docterman, and myself, Mark A. Altman, keep on trekking, ingloriously, of course. Ho, ho, ho!
I wanna wish you a Merry Christmas. I wanna wish you a Merry Christmas. I wanna wish you a Merry Christmas. I wish you a Merry Christmas from the bottom of my heart. I want to wish you a Merry Christmas. Yes, I want to wish you a Merry Christmas. No, really. I want to wish you a Merry Christmas from the bottom of my heart. I want to wish you a Merry Christmas. No, really. I want to wish you a Merry Christmas. Hey, I want to wish you a Merry Christmas from the bottom of my heart. Yeah. From the bottom of my heart.